Okay, on this video I'm going to show you how to do rollover buttons, and I'm going to show you how to basically you can load up your weapon. So when you change your weapon, it's going to like animate in, and then it's going to show the weapon, because before it was blinking in. So your knife was blinking in, your guns were blinking in, your crystal was blinking in. Now I'm going to show you how to like animate that up, and then it's going to be presented. So let me show you that real quick. Alright, so then when he comes and collects the weapons, crystal, now when you press the space bar, he animates down on that crystal there. See how that weapon came up? The knife comes up. Alright, so let me show you how I did that. Alright, so the first thing I'll show you is the rollover button. So the rollover button is this, I guess, basically went to the original button here, the load, and just copied that, edit, copy, and then made a new image, and then went into the image, and then went to the fade, and just changed it to a yellow color. And then the mount, pressed OK. Alright, and then I gave it the same coordinates around the image and all, so it doesn't jump. So the width's 308 and height 82. There's no X and Y origins, because that's how the original button was. So you do a create, then I did a alarm for 2 milliseconds, then alarm 0 kicks in, 2 milliseconds, alarm 0, and then it's going to jump to the load button, which is the original button, which is this button right here. So, and then, so that's basically when you're hovering over the, well actually no, sorry. So after 2 milliseconds it's going to switch back to the original button. And then if you click on it, if you click on the highlighted rollover button, then it's going to do the same thing it would do in the original load button, because you don't want to hover over the lidded button, you know, and then you click on it and it doesn't do anything. So you want to give it the same properties as the original load button. So the depth -50. So I just copied all this information right here from the load button and put it into the animated light button. So when you hover over the load button, no button selected, you go to add event, go to mouse, and you go to no button. That's basically rollover. Then it's going to switch the load button, the original button, to the lidded light up button for 2 milliseconds, and then it's going to jump back to the original load button. But like I said, if you hover over the button and it's lit up, then you can click on it still and it'll do the load process just like the original button. Or if you let it go back to the original button, or take your mouse off the button, just go back to the original button. It's going to do the load process when you click on it. So like I said, when you move your mouse over the button, when no buttons, when you don't click on it, then it's basically hovering over it. It's going to switch to the light up button. And the same thing happens for the start button. No button selected, it's going to switch to the second lit up button. You press on it, it's going to go to the next room, and the lit up button is going to do the same thing. When you're over it, if you're over the button, the start button, and you click on it, it's going to go to the next room. If you don't do anything after 2 milliseconds, it's going to jump back to the original start button. And I just made a new object for the start button and changed the color like I showed you the first time. Alright, so that's how to do rollover buttons, hover buttons. Now with the animated weapons, I had to make a new object for each one. And so you can see here there's several images. What I did was I just copied the original image of the knife and just copied it 6 times, and then what I did was inside the image took the selected region and I drew a box around it, and then I just dragged it down, and then I just saved it. And did the same thing for the next image, dragged it down a little bit and saved it until I had an animated image. Alright, so it's going to animate downward. And so did a create event, then I did a code event here, and then this is the image underscore speed 0.2, image underscore index equals 1, so it's going to move at 2 speeds. It's going to move. I believe it's going to move kind of fast there, and then it's going to start with 1, index 1. So index 1 is going to be, well, it starts, I don't know why, in my opinion it should start with image 3 and then animate up, but what I did was I just copied what I had in the original for the knife. So not in the knife. So in the knife, when you click global press mouse event, it has this image speed 0.2, index equals 1. I just copied that information and put it in with the animated knife to go up. I don't know what the reason. I think it needs to have image speed and an image index in there for it to do anything. If you don't have this information in here, it's not going to animate at all. I'm not sure the reasoning for this. I mean, it should, in my opinion, it should start with 0, because actually it should start with image 3, and then it should animate to image 0. But actually, you know what? I'm sorry. It should start with image 0, and then it goes down to image 1, 2, and 3. So I probably should maybe change this to image 0 instead of 1. And then after 2 milliseconds, it's going to switch to the hand object, which is going to allow you to press on the mouse to do something. So while it animates down or animates up, it should animate up. You can't click on it, but once it stops after 2 milliseconds, it's going to switch to the hands, and you can be able to do something. Then I gave the same properties as the hand, so all this has to be in here. This is all to project the image on the screen. Okay, the original hand of the knife they can actually, click on to swing is this information right here in the draw event. But see, the only thing I changed was here, the sprint hand. So sprint hands is the hands that you actually, is the knife that you swing this knife with when you click on the mouse. So in the animated knife, so all you do is change the sprint here. Just change this information right here to the animated knife moving up. And that's in the sprints, should be in here. Yeah, so this is the animated sprints here. So it's actually, the index is happening at 0, and then it's animating down to 3, and then it's stopping, and then jumping to the hand and with the knife, and it stops there until you press the space bar or the mouse click to grab the weapon, and then switch back, and then it animates again. So like I said, just copy all the information from the draw event and the knife, where you swing the knife, into the animated knife going up, and you just change out the sprint here so it reflects this image right here with the knife moving down. Because if you don't change that sprint in the draw event to the animated knife going down, then it's going to be the original knife where it's just static. It doesn't move until you click on the mouse. So make sure you change the sprint right here. Everything else stays the same. And you need this code right here in the draw event so that it's projected in 3D on screen. Make sure it's the same information is persistent and the depth's at -100, just like the knife you swing the knife with. You mirror everything pretty much except for changing out just change out the sprint here. And like I said, I wouldn't go down here and duplicate, go here, right click and press duplicate. Don't do that. You want to make a new object. And because you might mess something up with, because what's going to happen when you duplicate it, you'll be able to change the object name, but you won't be able to change the sprint information, and there could be a conflict later down the road where it's going to use a different sprint for your image. So you need to actually right click here and make a new object. And so the same thing applies when I did the gun. Same thing. This actually should probably say index 0, not 1, because it's going to actually start with for some reason, yeah, it should go from, I don't know, in a way this kind of works backwards. It should probably start with 4 and then animate to 0, but it kind of works backwards. It's starting with 0. Well, you actually are going down with it, or no, you should be going up with it. I don't know, it's kind of weird. It's kind of working backwards here, because in my opinion it should start with index 4 and then animate up to image 0, but it's saying, if I change this to 4, because that's what it really should start out with, is 4, because it's going to start out right here, then animate up to image 0. I wonder what would happen. It kind of works backwards. It doesn't matter then. It's weird. Okay, so I guess it doesn't matter. So I guess to make more sense here, I would start with index 4, because you are starting right here and you're at image 4, so it should before starts with, and it animates up to image 0. So, but you need this code in here for it to animate, and then you have image speed at 0.2, and then when it, after 2 milliseconds happens, it's going to switch to the original gun, where you'll be able to fire the weapon. And then in the draw event, you're changing this information like I talked about in the knife to the animated gun that comes up and then stops and switches over to the gun, so you're able to fire. So all this information, all this code has to be in there, because when you load up the game to the next room, it's got to project in 3D. So all this all this stuff is needed. All this code is needed for that to happen. If you don't have this code and just have this information, it's going to look flat and messed up looking. So just keep all the code the same. Depth minus 100 persistent. And then now, like with the crystal, when you collect the crystal, what's going to happen here is that it's going to, when you're done using the crystal, I'm trying to think, okay, when you're done using the, see, I had to change all this information here a little bit too. So if you're switching the hand with the knife to the crystal, then, or if you switch the gun with the crystal, I say crystal up, or gun 2 with object crystal up, that's referring to this animated, so it's coming up. So basically you've collected it, and then you're changing your weapon, your gun weapon or your knife weapon, to the hand with the crystal, so it's going to animate up, and then it's going to switch to the crystal that's actually going to do something and work. And I know it moves fast here, but like I said, you have that code in there where it's going to animate slower, at a slower rate. And then when you're done using the crystal, it's going to go back to, well, what's happening here is it's jumping to the crystal to use it. And then after it uses it, then it's going to, I've already talked about that, then it's going to go back to crystal gone. And then when it goes to crystal gone, it's going to see, this animates too. See, I had it before, it was just this image right here, crystal gone, and it blinks to the hand with the knife, but I added a couple more frames here where it's going to be lowered down to nothing. So after he uses the crystal, his hand's going to be lowered and then disappear, and then it's going to bring up the knife with the hand. So like I said before, I just had the hand here and then it blinked to the knife. Now I have it animate going down after you use it, and then it's going to swing up with a knife. This is all information I had before in original with the crystal gone. I just added a couple more frames to animate the hand going down. So this index 1 should probably be, it should probably start with image 2, because you're going up with it. Like I said, the frames don't seem like it matters so much, but you need this image speed and index in there for it to actually animate and do something. Let me just test that out real quick. So there's, it's kind of complex here a little bit. There's a lot of information to add to do one thing to it. Yeah, it makes more sense to change this image index to 2 because you're actually starting at image 2 right here. Then it's going to animate up to 0. But it, like I said, it does kind of it doesn't really matter if you change this number to 0 or 2. The main thing is you have to have this image speed and index in there for it to actually animate and project on the screen. And then, like I said, you change it to sprint crystal up, so it's going to animate up. So I just copied this code of the hand having the crystal and just changed the sprint to project the animation happening with the crystal going up. And all that's in with the sprint information to grab that animation of the crystal going up. And see, that's the name of it, sprint. And like I said, depth minus 100, persistent. And I think in the room here I have it set up where it's using the animation of the knife. Yeah, see, the animation's happening with the knife. So when you first start the game, he's going to animate the knife in. And like I said, the projection is going to show all of this information here with it being 3D and the animation of the knife happening. And then it's going to jump to the hand with the knife where you actually physically can use it when you click on the button on the mouse. But you need to have it set up for persistent and depth minus 100. Alright, so I hope I explained it okay to you. Like I said, I would just download the GameMaker 8 and then, play around with it to get familiar with how I animated the weapons in and everything. And then my next video will be about fading in. I'm going to try to do fade in with when you first start, so it'll be black, and then fade into showing the buttons, and then when you die, it's gonna blink red and all that stuff. So I'm going to try to do something like that. And then I'm going to also do a mini map in the game, so you'll be able to see all your bad guys when you first start. So you have like a little mini map at the top, or you can click a map or something and it will show a mini map at the top, and you can see where all your bad guys are moving at and all that stuff. So I'm going to try to do something like that as well. Alright, so stay tuned.